Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Tonight on Our News, Parliament prorogued. We've got live team coverage. The opposition and DNA urged the Prime Minister to ring the election bell, plus no mandatory vaccinations at a private hospital. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, in a shocking turn of events, Parliament was prorogued today and the next session was scheduled for September 22nd. We have live team coverage tonight on the two proclamations by the Governor-General read on the steps of Parliament and reaction from the opposition. We begin tonight with Kyle Joaquin, who's been following this story all day. He joins us live from Parliament Square. Good evening, Kyle.
Christina, we are live in Parliament Square, where it is much quieter now than it was earlier. Now, reporters got the call just after 8 this morning to be here in place for 9:30 when the Commissioner of Police would read a proclamation from the Governor-General. Now, everyone heard this and assumed that maybe this may be it. However, 9:30 came and went, and so did the hours after that, and nothing happened.
The next session of Parliament shall be held in the city of Nassau and the island of New Providence on Friday, the 22nd day of September 2021.
Parliamentarians are set to return on September 22nd, which just happens to be the original return date from when Parliament broke a few months back. It came this afternoon after Police Commissioner Paul Roll, in his capacity as Provost Marshal, read the second proclamation from the steps of Parliament for the day. 9:30 this morning saw a major announcement that perhaps had people expecting much more.
Governor-General of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, do hereby prorogue Parliament as from the 18th day of August 2021, given under my hand and seal.
In the end, many would be left with more questions. On the outside, a crowd of eager onlookers, as well as those who showed up for another event, a planned open Parliament by House Speaker Halton Moutry.
The Prime Minister has taken an initiative based on my perception of a complete misunderstanding of what the Speaker is proposing today with the open Parliament.
Though unprecedented, Moutry's motive with the open Parliament, he said, was to allow the public to voice concerns. Though Parliament was prorogued and his open Parliament left up in the air, Moutry said he wasn't backing down.
They're not answerable to anyone. They have the majority of the Parliament in terms of the members of the executive. When they walk into this Parliament, they have sufficient vote to outvote the opposition and the backbench combined. So the Parliament has become a rubber stamp.
At one point, it looked as if police were trying to remove Moutry from the House of Assembly, as one by one they were called into the lower chamber. When he emerged, Moutry explained that police were actually trying to call off his open Parliament plans.
They had advised the police that the Speaker don't have any jurisdiction to proceed. And I asked the police, well, first of all, I advised the police that that is nowhere in law, nowhere in the rules, and nowhere in the Constitution.
Political observers have questioned whether today's events were part of a ploy to get rid of Moutry as Speaker of the House of Assembly, as once parliamentarians return, they'll have to vote on a new Speaker. Moments after the first proclamation was read this morning, a number of third-party leaders and their supporters showed up in full force in Parliament Square.
It would have meant that the Prime Minister and all of his members of Parliament would have had to hear the voice and the complaints and the concerns of the people. They would have been able to put forward to the government what they are feeling and what they are going through.
And this is where commoners come to bring the issues to the nation. And so the Prime Minister proroguing the House today is basically ending this session so that we can't speak. So he's muffling the voice of the people.
And the executive, I'm seeing, wants to do their work without the help of the legislature. And we must show them that this is not how it's done.
Now again, Parliament resumes on September 22nd. We are live in Parliament Square. Kyle Joaquin, Our News.
Thanks, Kyle. Meanwhile, opposition leader Philip Davis and DNA leader Arinthia Komolafe are slamming the Prime Minister for today's events, urging him to call an election. Jared Higgs joins us live from PLP headquarters. Good evening, Jared.
here at PLP headquarters, where just a few hours earlier, PLP leader Philip Davis gave some remarks where he slammed the Prime Minister for the actions earlier today, saying that it was all to get rid of Halson Moultrie. Now, he says that it's because the government doesn't want an independent Speaker of the House.
Stop playing games, man. Things are falling apart. People are hurting. Ring the bell. It's the first step to a better day.
Davis slamming Dr. Minnis for a day filled with guessing that left many questions still unanswered.
Our healthcare system is collapsing. The economic crisis continues to cause great pain and suffering. Everywhere we look, there's chaos and turmoil. We are facing a health crisis, an economic crisis, a labor crisis, an education crisis, a safety and security crisis.
Critics have suggested that the proroguing of Parliament was done to remove the Speaker of the House. Some are slamming the Prime Minister for focusing on that issue instead of the overwhelming health crisis facing the nation.
And he has too much powers, and we've been campaigning on this for years within the DNA, that the powers of the Prime Minister need to be reduced.
DNA leader Arinthia Komolafe also criticized the Prime Minister for the day's events. While acknowledging that his actions were within his powers as Prime Minister, she described it as tyrannical.
That is really an abuse of our democracy, something that we've been standing on for many years. We pride ourselves of having a stable democracy, and to see the Prime Minister, and I must lay the blame at him, to see the Prime Minister use the tools of our democracy for his own personal agenda is nothing short of tyrannical and moving toward what I deem as dictatorial actions.
With speculation that the decision to prorogue the House was made to open the door for a vote of no confidence in House Speaker Halson Moultrie, Parliamentary Clerk David Forbes says the agenda is fresh.
Those matters can be brought up again. Anything that was discussed in the last session can be brought up again. And if you remember correctly, there was a vote of no confidence in the Speaker first and then in the Prime Minister. So at the end of the day, it's quite possible for both of those matters to be put back on the agenda.
Now, as Kyle told you all earlier, the House of Assembly will return on September 22nd, 2021 at 10 a.m. Reporting live from PLP headquarters on Farrington Road, I'm Jared Higgs. Back to you in studio, Christina.
Thanks, Jared. Well, even as Parliament was prorogued, dozens of Bahamians who showed up for open Parliament remained in Parliament Square this morning to vent their frustrations over the state of the country. For that, we go live to Berthany McDermott in Rawson Square. Berthany?
Hitch. In fact, it may have added fuel to the fire.
Bahamian lives matter! Bahamian lives matter! Bahamian lives matter!
A crowd of dissatisfied Bahamians crammed under tents in Parliament Square for the first open Parliament session on Wednesday. While most of them wore masks, there was no social distancing.
Who else is this?
A defiant House Speaker Halson Moultrie said he's on a mission to ensure dignity and pride are restored.
It is now time to arise like true soldiers of the cross and declare with one clarion voice, enough is enough. We are sick and tired, and we are taking back our Parliament from the claws of political parties, cronyism, nepotism, and political patronage.
The House Speaker added that the session is a new way to bring together the people and the legislative branch. He reiterated that the plan was for him to take the concerns expressed and present them to Parliament. One by one, Bahamians raised concerns over a number of issues, from the state of healthcare to unemployment.
Bahamians deserve more than grocery package, backpacks, and crayons. What we want to see is Bahamian ownership and empowerment, economic liberation, a first world education and healthcare system, the development of of new and innovative industries. I'm upset because our healthcare system is collapsing. I'm upset because over 65% of young people in this country is unemployed. I'm upset because the value-added tax is killing the Bahamian people whilst the minimum wage rate is at a standstill.
Independent Centerville MP Reece Chipman, who quit the F&M in 2019, moderated the event. He made this appeal to young professionals to stand with them.
But we want to make an appeal to these accountants and lawyers and doctors to stand with us in unity, to ensure a nation built for the next generation.
Concerned that this event could possibly be a super spreader. Still, he said he's pleased with the results. Now, these sessions are expected to be every Wednesday in Parliament Square until House reconvenes on September 22nd. Reporting live from Rawson Square, I'm Berthany McDermott. Christina.
Thanks, Berthany. Well, breezy and pleasant conditions in the capital. Greg Thompson has the latest.
Thanks, Christina, and welcome everybody for your first look at weather. We had some very summer-like temperatures around the islands once again, into the 90s, and your triple-digit indices keeping it very hot out there. 85 degrees outside our studios right now, few clouds, we'll call it humid. Your winds are out of the east at around 7 knots, and your feels like temperature in the mid to upper 80s. Satellite view, quiet around the area. We do have that high-pressure ridge generating some very brisk winds across the islands, but we have Hurricane Grace formed early this morning, generating some high-level clouds across the central portions of the southeast Bahamas. No real weather associated with the system in our area. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, nearly 5,000 names added to the voter register since May. Plus, the pediatrician organization recommends vaccination against COVID-19 in children over age 12. That's coming up when our news returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
More than 5,000 new names have been added to the permanent voter register, according to Acting Parliamentary Commissioner Lovato Duncanson, who says there are now over 190,000 Bahamians registered to vote. Jillian Gray tells us more.
Nearly 5,000 people have registered to vote between May and August. In May, the permanent register had 189,346 registered voters. According to Acting Parliamentary Commissioner Lovato Duncanson, 134,729 people are registered on New Providence. On Grand Bahama, 30,729 people are registered, while Family Island registrants stand at 28,805 people. Though Parliament was only prorogued today, news that the Provost Marshal would be reading a proclamation from the Governor General sparked speculation about a general election. This prompted voters like Exuma resident Gary Vince Roll to rush to the Parliamentary Registration Department.
Really and truly, I wasn't back in Exuma from the pandemic. And I don't want to be challenged in the next election, and I need to know where I stand with my voter's card. And it's no secret that election fever is on.
Roll suggested there would be no confusion if the promise of a fixed election date had been fulfilled.
I personally was looking forward for a posted date myself, really, because we have been too long, just one man tell you when election, and another one is the Prime Minister limitation. The U.S. system is working pretty good. I don't care how good you are and how efficient, whatever you do. There's no question when that 2 terms is up, whether you good or bad, you're out. I think there ought to be a good move to have this put forward in that area.
While some are rushing to register, others say they don't see the need to vote and are disinterested in the entire process.
Right now, all I see is manipulation one-on-one. It's all about, don't care who is in power, it's all about manipulation, right? I think the politicians study the people, they know how things run, and it's all about manipulation.
Others suggested the Prime Minister should have addressed the country on the way forward.
And when you come behind and you put in all these laws, let us know what you're going to do. You don't just take it upon yourself because you're a leader. You just pass everything and do as you like. No, this is not a one. No man is an island. It's not an island unto themselves. And when you pick leadership, they must listen to the voice of the people.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, about 24 local pediatricians have banded together in support of the COVID-19 vaccine for children as young as 12 years old, in a move they say provides teens and preteens with a layer of protection as the pandemic rages on. Dr. Sherelle Lockhart is a pediatrician and member of the Pediatric Preferred Physician Organization, or PPO.
It is our duty to protect our children. And we feel like this is a good layer of protection for our kids. Yes, we still need to mask up. We still need to wash our hands and social distance as much as possible.
According to the PPO statement, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on the physical, social, and emotional well-being of our children in the Bahamas and worldwide. Like all vaccines used in the Bahamas, the COVID-19 vaccines authorized for use have undergone extensive safety and efficacy reviews.
There have been millions of children in the U.S. as of the 11th of August. About 10.7 million children in the U.S. have been vaccinated. And so I think we have fairly good short-term data. Yes, we don't have long-term data available, but we have fairly good short-term data available for people to see at any particular point in time.
The Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine is the only vaccine authorized for use in children ages 12 to 17. Dr. Lockhart says this group is still at risk of severe illness or even death due to COVID-19.
They really should consider vaccinating their children based on what we're seeing in our country at this point in time. We are being overrun by COVID-19 at the moment. It is killing young, healthy people.
Dr. Lockhart says all PPO members are available by phone, text, email, or social media to answer any questions parents may have about the vaccine for teens. Meanwhile, Doctors Hospital isn't making the COVID-19 vaccine mandatory for its staff, even though uptake among its physicians is low. Jared Higgs tells us more.
Doctors Hospital CEO Dr. Charles Digges says a poll conducted internally by Doctors Hospital revealed that 54 out of nearly 250 physicians were fully vaccinated. It comes as the number of vaccinated healthcare workers hovers around 50%.
We need to accept that being vaccinated is not the question. The question is, am I adhering to the requirements of vaccinating? Am I getting my shots on time? Am I paying attention to when ultimately I will need to get revaccinated or get my boosters?
Digges' comments come as the country struggles with its vaccination effort. Vaccine stocks have increased recently and more options are on the table, but even among healthcare workers, uptake is lagging. Digges wants them to come around to taking the vaccine on their own.
I think individuals are intelligent enough and have enough insight to understand that the battle is bigger than the position that you're taking on vaccination.
However, while private hospitals in South Florida make the vaccine mandatory for their staff, Digges says Doctors Hospital is currently not considering a policy where it will mandate its employees to be vaccinated.
No, we continue not to put mandate and vaccine in the same sentence. No, we're strongly encouraging our healthcare worker, our associates to move beyond this issue and get vaccinated.
Doctors Hospital, a private facility, and PMH, a public institution, are overburdened with COVID-19 patients. Their staff are burnt out and their supplies and capacity are running low. Digges says transmission events are largely to blame.
No masks, a lot of socialization, public events. Those events are going to give us about 10 to 14 days before we see what we see now. And so we have to pay a lot of attention to removing such events because we're going to continue to pay a price down the road.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
When Our News comes back from the break, a look at how local businesses are doing in 2021. Plus, NCAA hoops action coming to the Bahamas. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is Our News. Welcome back. The first half of 2021 has been an interesting one for local businesses and stocks. Here to tell us a little bit more is RF VP of Investments, David Slatter. David, welcome.
Good evening, Christine.
So tell us, what have dividends looked like so far for local stocks?
Well, in the local stock market, the dividend rate or the dividend yield is really important to investors. All right, so most investors want to get some cash back in the form of a dividend. And despite the fact we're recovering from the COVID-19 recession, 7 of the 20 publicly traded companies have increased dividends over the last 12 months. 5 of the companies are holding steady, 5 are down. But it's important to note that the average dividend yield in the market is just under 3%. So if you think about what you're making in the bank, basically zero. In the stock market, you're getting an income return of around 3%, and that's before capital appreciation. So capital appreciation has been very strong year to date for many companies, and the outlook for dividend payments is positive. We expect dividends to increase over the balance of the year into 2022.
How does that compare to 2020?
Yeah, so an idea of the 7 companies that have increased dividend payments, AML Markets, or AML, their dividend is up 16 cents per share from 12 cents. So if you think about that, that's a 33% increase in the amount of dividend paid. Bahamas First has increased dividends, Bahamas Waste, Bank of Bahamas, Benchmark Bahamas, Family Garden. Other they trade as FamGuard, and First Caribbean, for example, today they announced an extraordinary dividend of 42 cents per share. So that's around a 4% yield just at one dividend. So we view that as a positive outlook for the banking sector going forward and the market as a whole.
Excellent. Well, thank you as always for that insight.
Thank
you. When Our News returns, we take a look at the Weather Center. Greg Thompson is back. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to Our News. A mix of sun and clouds is coming up. Greg has the latest details in the Weather Center.
Thanks again, Christine, and welcome back, everybody, for your second look at weather. We're still tracking 2 systems out there in the tropics. We have Tropical Storm Henri, which is just to the southwest of Bermuda, continuing to move towards the west. It is packing some winds just around 70 miles per hour. Expected to make a turn towards the west-northwest and then eventually towards the north over the next 24 to 36 hours. Could make hurricane status before it moves into the North Atlantic and weakens. Of course, we have Grace, which is now a hurricane, became a hurricane earlier today, and it's impacting the Cayman Islands as well as portions of Cuba. High-level clouds spreading across the southeast Bahamas, not really generating any weather across us, but the tight pressure gradient between the high across the area is generating some very strong winds across that location. Grace will continue moving towards the west, should be Category 2 before it runs into the Yucatan Peninsula, weaken some, and then back into the Gulf of Mexico and running into Mexico by the end of the weekend, and it could regain hurricane status once again. Boating forecast for all areas, well, actually for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be out of the northeast to east at 10 to 15 knots, gusty at times. Seas will be running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean, while in the southeast Bahamas, easterly winds at 15 knots, seas running 3 to 5 feet over the ocean. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Monday. That's a look at our weather. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. In other news, 19 NCAA men and women's basketball teams will battle for the trophy at Baha Mar's Bahama Hoops basketball tournament during Thanksgiving week. Bahama Hoops is expected to be the largest early season event in all of college basketball. It will be headlined by Louisville and Maryland, as well as women's national champions Stanford.
It also can set up another channel for the resort to tap into the corporate spend that's made in and around not only that event, but potentially other corporate outings that might show up here in the future as a result of that. So the trickle-down effect in so many different lanes and verticals is almost immeasurable.
Hoops action will kick off Monday, November 22nd, with 2,000 to 4,000 visitors expected. Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar calls it another boost for the country's tourism industry.
So he's saying 2,000 to 4,000 people, and then we multiply that by an average spend of about $2,000 per person over the course of their stay. And so that's lots of zeros and economic impact in the country. Going to the airport, they're paying taxes at the airport, they're getting into transportation, they're coming here, going into a hotel, going into retail, going into casinos, restaurants, water parks, touching Bahamians all the time.
Well, that does it for us here at Our News. Thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.